Hello there, my lovelies. For today's video, I will be doing a painting of these little guys here. So, this is actually a commission piece that I'm painting for a friend of mine, and she has some very beautiful magical coloured fish. So she asked me if I could do a painting or a drawing for her of some rainbow fish. So here is my attempt at creating that for her. So I'm just setting up here, picking the right pencil, and to start I'm just working out where I want the fish to be positioned. So I will start very simply by drawing 3 curved lines, and that will indicate where I want them to go. So I'm going to have one down the bottom, one in the middle, and one at the top. So for added effect today, I have left my aquarium pump on, so you can hear trickling water sounds in the background if you listen carefully. I hope it's not too distracting, but I thought it might help. Okay, so I hope you can all see what I'm trying to do here. I'm working around my central line and creating the head shape of my fish. So I believe the ones I am trying to emulate today are Japanese fighter fish. I hope I got that right. I'm more used to drawing goldfish and koi, so they probably look a little bit different to the photos I'm working from, but let's just call it artistic license. After all, art is about expression. So here I'm just double checking images so that I can get the face or the head right, because fighting fish tend to have more pointed ends to the front of their head. Very different from the fish that I have, which are quite funny looking with their bulbous heads and eyes. So you'll see me do this a lot where I am not quite happy with the shape, and I'll just rub out the bit that I want to edit, I guess you could say. I'm trying to keep the lines fairly light because they're going to be used as a guide for when I'm painting, and I don't want them to shine through too much. So I'm just popping in the indications where the eyes will go. So at the minute they look like eels a little bit, but I promise they do turn out to look like fish in the end. Unless you want to cheat and skip to the end of the video. Okay, so for this part I'm just adding in the fins and just indicating where I want their tails to go. I wanted to create a great deal of movement in this piece, hence why they look like they're bending and swimming around each other. I didn't just want to do one static picture of a fighter fish. I wanted to draw several, like they're in a body of water, I guess you could say. Okay. So you can tell I'm adding a bit more detail now. So again, working out where the little divots in the head are, where their little fins and bits are going to stick out. Keeping that central line as a guide. And just working over what I've done already. So this process itself can take many hours. I have been known to rub out an entire piece almost and start again. I'm quite a perfectionist when it comes to my work, as are probably most artists if they're honest. If it's not right, I will bin it. Even if I've gotten to 80% of the way through and I'm not happy, I will bin it, which I know sounds a little bit harsh, but in the end I think I create better work for myself that's more satisfying. So today I'm working on an A3 piece of paper. I prefer to work bigger than smaller, if I'm honest. Anything smaller than A3 and I tend to not have as much detailing in my pieces. I can work with A4 and smaller, but I just prefer to work large. When I was studying fine art at uni, in my little studio space, I would have absolutely humongous pieces of paper and I would draw mural-sized things on them, so I guess I'm just used to it from then. So I find A3 the best. It gives me enough space to put what I want to paper, which is good, and it also allows me to add the amount of detail that I want. Typically a piece this size can take me anywhere from a couple of days to an entire week or even more. The longest I've ever spent on a painting was probably 3 weeks, and it was a big piece, but I like to do little bits each day. I find that I'm more inspired that way, and I don't feel like I'm pressuring myself to produce an entire piece in one day. So the footage you're actually watching was filmed over a week. I think in total I've probably spent between 8 to 10 hours solidly on this piece alone. But as I said, I was working for about half an hour each time, every few days to allow myself to be refreshed and also for the paint layers to dry properly. So if I hadn't edited down this video, it would probably be several days long, if I'm honest. I set up the camera in the morning and I would just leave it on while I was painting, while I was taking coffee breaks. So I have edited out obviously a lot of the, I guess you could call it, fluff from the video, and kept the more exciting parts. So as you'll notice, I'm now adding colour to my sketch, and one of the things that I was asked to do in my little brief was to make it as colourful and vibrant as possible, because if you look up Japanese fighting fish, they come in the most magnificent of colours. So I wanted to try and copy that. And the way I did this is I'm using a wash of colours and really slowly blending them together. So I'll be using some paint, very watered down, for a light wash, and then as each layer dries I will be adding a slightly darker tone over the top, and that's what helps it to blend in a bit. So here I already have about 4 colours on this fish. I think this one ends up being the most vibrant because he just has so many colours. He is a true rainbow fish. So the wash is basically a base, and once all my paint is dry, that is when I will start to layer my colouring pencils over the top. I love to work with mixed medium and different effects. So my favourite is mixing paint with colouring pencils or pastels to create different effects. And the pencil crayons that I'm using today are actually water soluble, so you can use them as paints, but for this particular piece I'm just using them to draw and then layering them over the top, which you'll see a little bit later on. But they are really fantastic, and they're actually a new brand for me. So if you guys are interested in what materials I used to create this piece, in the description box below I will pop everything that I used today. So you guys can even try this at home yourselves. So you can see it's a little bit more vibrant now, and that is because I've used 3 layers of paint now, and just here I'm using it fairly concentrated to get my detail in before I start the crayon work. So he's starting to look a little less like some sort of fantasy sea creature and more of a fish. Now, his tail might look a little bit crazy, but from the pictures I've seen online, they have the most amazing fan tails. They are absolutely beautiful and way, way bigger than their bodies. I don't think I did their fins justice because they are just so beautiful and wide as well. But I didn't want to make the fins too big because it would just swamp the look of the fish and the painting, and I wanted to keep that detail in. So here I'm using my paint neat and just spackling on some detailing. Okay. Just on the body itself, so this will give the appearance of scales and just little extra textile bits. Okay, so just dab, 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 dab. Dab, 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 dab. Okay. So now I've used my colouring pencils on the bottom fish, as you can probably tell by the tail. I'm going to be working on the third fish up the top while the second one dries. So you can probably tell I haven't quite finished the tail on the orange fish yet, and that is because the one above it is going to be overlapping, so I will leave that till last. But you can really see the difference that the colouring pencils make to the fins and just the level of detail you can get. So I've decided this little guy up here is going to be blue and green. So again, same as before, I'm just layering him up using a light wash and then darkening it as it dries. Okay. So here I'm mixing two blues. So the darker one I'm using for my shading, and at the minute he looks a bit like a water Pokemon. At least that's what he reminds me of. Okay, so you can see the vast difference that the colouring pencils have made to my fish. I finished off their faces using a black colouring pencil as well, and I'm really happy with how they each turned out. They all look slightly different, and if they had personalities they would definitely be different. So to finish the piece, I am simply using a blue wash to fill in my background. Now, a lot of people would probably tell me off for this. Painting 101 is you usually paint your background or your background work, I should say, first before you do your foreground, so you can build it up. But I am a bit backwards and I prefer to do it this way. So I'm trying to just keep it fairly even all the way around, and you'll notice I'm leaving a tiny gap between each fish where the paint is, and that is simply because, as I said, these pencils are water soluble, so I don't want them bleeding too much into the background. But as you see, I will be using my water to blend out the tails and the fins. Okay. So let's just drag it down here. And now for this side. Okay. Just tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. So, this is to create a nice background colour so that it's not just a stark white, but also to give that water effect, so they look like they're actually swimming around instead of just floating in midair. Okay. Just move around all the fiddly bits. Now obviously I don't want the blue to mix with my yellow fish, so I'm being very careful to go around the fins and the tail. Okay. And here I'm using the water to pull and bleed out the tail, and then giving him a quick wash over just to blend that body in. And this is where these pencils are really good. They blend very well and perfect for watercolour paintings or anything that you want to look a bit misty. They're really good for. So here I am washing out my brush and just using straight just water to pull out the colour from the fins, and you can see it makes it so much more vibrant. I really love this effect. So I will definitely be using these again. So for the very last part, I'm going to give him some scales, just like I did for the other two. So just lightly dot, 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 dot around the head. Okay, and I just noticed there's a little gap there, so let's fill that in before it dries. There we go. So that is my finished piece. Ta-da! So I've got a couple of pictures here to show you of it all finished, and I was so happy with how it turned out. I love the colours, and it was a lot of fun and super relaxing to paint. So I hope my recipient loves it as much as I do. If any of you out there are interested in having a commission piece done, please let me know. I would love to create some work for you guys. And also please let me know if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more painting from me. I will gladly make more painting videos because, as I said, I found this one super relaxing to do. So I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, I will see you all in my next creative video. Bye guys.